Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. In this episode, we're going to deal with the tragedy of rust, the fact that everybody loses. And I think that is something that a lot of people have lost sight of as we've dealt, with certain characters in the story. And so in this series, and it's going to be a couple of episodes, I'm not sure how many because it's a very long script, but probably 4, 5 or 6 episodes. And we're going to deal with certain characters that we haven't met before and certain aspects to the story that we haven't dealt with. By the way, if you are hearing certain ticking sounds in the background, it is raining right now where I am, and every now and then there's a drop of rain that hits against the window. So that is the static noise you're hearing in the background. I must say, when I prepared this analysis, I really just wanted to deal with the loss that other people have faced in terms of this tragedy. And in the course of finding that out, I really found out so much more to the story. And so I hope you'll join me through the course of the next couple of episodes in uncovering all of this new and interesting information. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do like, share, leave a comment, and let's get started. So the premise of Rust was simple, and I think it's quite interesting to think about. The premise of the movie, the story idea, is that in the 1880s, Kansas saw an outlaw called Harland Rust, and he rescued a 13-year-old boy called Lucas, who is his grandson. And Lucas has been sentenced to hang for murder after an accidental shooting. Now that they're fugitives, both of them have to outrun U.S. Marshal Wood Helm and bounty hunter Fenton Preacher Lang. So there you have kind of a quartet of actors. You've got Harland Rust, which is Alec Baldwin. You've got a 13-year-old and playing his grandson. And then you've also got a U.S. Marshal and a bounty hunter. I think what is quite ironic with this is that the story revolves around a plot hinge, which is the accidental shooting. And the authorities believe it wasn't accidental, that it's actually murder. And as a result, Rust isn't the character who did this, but he takes it upon himself to come to the aid of his grandson, and they decide to try to outrun the authorities. And so you have this mindset in the movie of trying to avoid accountability for something that isn't as bad as the authorities think it is. It's quite interesting, isn't it? They say life imitates art. Well, if it does, you have an accidental shooting here followed by those responsible running away, put quite simply. Now, in May 2020, when it was announced that Alec Baldwin would produce and be the leading actor in Rust, a story Baldwin actually co-created with director Joel Souza, Baldwin was asked about his gunslinging and horse riding skills. He told The Hollywood Reporter at the time, quote, "They're always at the ready. I'm an actor of the old school. So if you read my resume, my motorcycle riding, my French, juggling, my horseback riding, my gunplay is all right at my fingertips at all times," end quote. The production apparently involved some 150 crew members. So that's according to this report. I don't know whether they scaled them down, because I've also heard it as 90 crew members. But certainly in May 2020, they were talking about 150 crew members, 230 background actors from New Mexico, and that Rust was undoubtedly Baldwin's passion project. It was his idea. So he didn't sort of join or cotton on. He wasn't brought in on the side. I get the feeling that he wrote the script, co-wrote it with the director, and a lot of this is all really his baby, right? And although it's his passion project, the low budget meant there were going to be limited resources and a very tight filming schedule, just 21 days. That's 3 weeks. You can ask anyone in the industry, is that a tight schedule? See what they say. Now, it doesn't matter whether you like Baldwin or not. I've just seen a comment on YouTube where someone accused me of being an apologist. But whether you defend him or whether you don't, in a scenario where somebody dies in the production of a film, that production tends to be immediately cancelled. Shooting stops immediately. Everybody goes home. The production either goes into long-term limbo or it's cancelled altogether. So whether you defend what happened on Rust or whether you defend those responsible, you're also defending the situation where when this happens, everybody loses. So if you say, look, accidents happen, it's not the end of the world, well, it is the end of a lot for a lot of people. A lot of people have a lot at stake, and it all comes to a grinding halt. So you might take that psychology and say, should one try to prevent this from happening? If so many lives and livelihoods, so many jobs and dreams are kind of on the cards, should one really, make safety a priority? And think about that and this idea of it not being a big deal. Somebody dies, it's not a big deal. Well, everything ends. Not for 1 or 2 or 10 or 20 or 50 people, but for hundreds of people. And a lot of work went into all of this, a lot of money as well, a lot of hopes and investment and commitments. So in this episode and the ones that follow, I really want to paint a more global picture of the folks involved who have lost out, some of whom may be familiar to you. And I think when you put a face to some of these people, it really humanizes the story in a way that I think it needs to be. I also want to deal with the script, particularly the narrative inside the church in more detail. And so we will be getting to that. So in terms of the cast, Travis Fimmel was cast as Fenton Preacher Lang. He is the bounty hunter that is working alongside U.S. Marshal Woodhelm to go after Lucas and presumably Harlan Rust as well. And if that name doesn't ring a bell, if you may not know that Fimmel became the first male in the world to secure a 6-figure deal to model exclusively for Calvin Klein for a year. And according to Wikipedia, quote, Fimmel's modeling career first began when he was spotted working out at a gym in the Melbourne suburb of Hawthorne by the flatmate of Matthew Anderson, a talent scout for the Chadwick Models Agency. Fimmel headed overseas and was signed on the spot with LA Models in 2002 after walking into their office broke and barefoot. You may know Fimmel from his breakout role as the legendary Ragnar in Vikings. Another actor cast in the cowboy flick that you might know is Jensen Ackles, playing the role of U.S. Marshal Woodhelm. Ackles, also a former male model, has appeared in Smallville and as the lead in Supernatural. Then there's also Devin Werkheiser. Werkheiser also posted this tribute to Halyna. Frances Fisher was also cast as Lucas's aunt, presumably. Presumably that's Harlan Rust's daughter in the story. Fisher also appeared in Unforgiven with Clint Eastwood, a film that apparently served as a sort of inspiration for Rust. And if you remember in Unforgiven, Clint Eastwood plays this sort of aged gunslinger who struggles to get on his horse and perhaps struggles a bit with self-doubt, but then proves himself to be up to the task. Fisher actually posted this tribute to Halyna on her Instagram. Interestingly, about a month after the fatal shooting incident, another member of the Rust crew, Jason Miller, was bitten by a venomous recluse spider. I think it's a brown recluse spider. Miller was hospitalized and had to undergo multiple surgeries to avoid having his arm amputated. And now we go into the next section, filming begins. Ironically, the production started during strike action by members of IATSE Union, that's the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, over working conditions and low pay. So the production begins within the context, against the background of strike action by members of this union, and it's over working conditions and it's over low pay. And so this means the moment production started, the crew were conscious of work standards. Halyna was one of those who posted in support of IATSE. On her Instagram, she also tagged Alec Baldwin's account and also Jensen Ackles, Brady Noon, and others. According to the LA Times, there was no medic present while the film sets were constructed, and this was raised as an early concern. From the LA Times article, The Day Alec Baldwin Shot Halyna Hutchins and Joel Souza, published on October 31st, 2021, that was just 10 days following the incident, we get one of the most comprehensive and detailed accounts for what was happening on the set in general, and also what specifically played out that day, October 21st, the day Halyna died. According to the article, quote, this report is based on interviews with 14 Rust crew members, that's comprehensive, including 9 who were at Bonanza Creek Ranch the day Hutchins was shot, also including records from Santa Fe County, Santa Fe film permits and emails, text messages, and internal communications from the Rust production. According to the article, it is the most comprehensive account to date of a day that ended in tragedy. So I'm not going to take it much further than that, except to quote this as kind of a conclusion, and this was something quoted in that article. It was a statement made by Lane Looper, and he said, quote, it always felt like the budget was more important than crew members. Lane Looper was the first camera assistant, and he said those words in an interview with the Times. He also said everything was about the schedule and the budget. That was his perception 10 days after Halyna died. Everything that happened in the film, from his perspective, was about the schedule and the budget. But there were also other arguments over details, and we're going to deal with that. I see we're already past 12 minutes. We'll deal with that in the next episode. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.